I never imagined that one ordinary evening could change everything. It began like any other night. Simple dinner, a quiet house, the kind of routine that lulls you into thinking life is steady. I was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, the soft hum of the refrigerator filling the silence, when he appeared. Caleb, Adrian's son from an earlier marriage. He wasn't a stranger, not really, but I hadn't expected him to enter my life in a way that would unsettle me so completely. At 23, he carried a restlessness that mirrored a feeling I had long buried inside myself. There was something in the way he moved, the slight hesitations, the fleeting glances that felt like they were searching for something he couldn't name. That summer, the house seemed to breathe with anticipation. Adrian was always away, calls and late-night hotel stays replacing his presence. Our marriage had narrowed to logistics and obligation. The nights were long, and silence had become my constant companion. And then Caleb arrived. He was polite, trying to figure out his next steps in life. College applications, job interviews, the restlessness of youth. We started as mere cohabitants, sharing a roof without much overlap beyond polite conversation. Late-night snacks became a ritual, shared laughter over old movies a tentative bridge. Morning jogs, casual chats in the kitchen, nothing screamed danger. At first, I believed it was simply companionship, a harmless connection. But then one evening, everything shifted. Adrian called to say he would be working late, leaving the house unusually quiet. Caleb came down from his room, hair still damp from the shower, wearing sweats that made him look both casual and impossibly close. He sat across from me, quieter than usual, and there was a new intensity in his gaze that I couldn't ignore. "You look lonely," he said softly. My heart skipped. I brushed it off, said I was tired, but his eyes held a knowing that unnerved me. He noticed small things, my choice of music, the novels lined neatly on the shelf, the subtle scent of my perfume. What began as harmless attention started to feel like something sharper, more consuming. That night, our conversation stretched until dawn. He spoke of not belonging, of pressure and expectations that weighed heavily on him. I confessed to loneliness, to missing the warmth that Adrian's presence used to bring. Walls I had built around my heart began to crumble. Our words became confessions, and in the quiet darkness, a forbidden connection began to form. When he reached for my hand, I didn't pull away. When he whispered my name, I felt my resolve waver. And when our lips met, I didn't stop him. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, yet in that moment, nothing else seemed to matter. Morning brought clarity and guilt. The house, once warm with shared laughter, now felt heavy with consequences. I tried to rationalize, to convince myself it had been a single lapse, an isolated spark. But Caleb kept finding ways to bridge the distance. Small touches in the kitchen, notes slipped into my palm, an eagerness that mirrored my own. His hunger frightened me because it reflected my own longing, a yearning I had ignored for too long. "Don't you feel alive with me?" he asked once, almost pleading. I had to admit I did. Not the steady, quiet love I had promised Adrian, but something raw, something that made me feel truly seen again. I found myself questioning everything. What was right, what was forbidden, and what I secretly craved. It wasn't love in the conventional sense, not the steady warmth of marriage, but a dangerous need, a momentary escape from emptiness. And with every glance, every whispered word, I felt the thread of my life unraveling in ways I couldn't stop. Caleb's presence was a mirror to my own desires, a reminder of the parts of me I had kept hidden for years. The evening stretched on, a delicate tension hanging between us, each small gesture loaded with unspoken meaning. By the time the first rays of dawn crept through the curtains, I knew my life had changed. There was no erasing the night's choices, no pretending the connection wasn't there. The weight of what had happened settled in my chest, thrilling and terrifying all at once. I wondered if Adrian would ever suspect, if the boundaries we had taken for granted could ever be repaired. And as Caleb's eyes met mine once more, a silent promise lingered between us, one that neither of us could ignore, no matter the consequences. The night was over, but the tension remained. A quiet storm that promised more than I was ready to face. Something had begun, something that could not be undone, and I feared that once this thread was pulled, It would unravel everything I thought I knew about my life. The next days were a delicate dance of normalcy and temptation. Adrian was away more than usual, and the house felt emptier than ever. I told myself it was harmless, that Caleb and I were just two people drawn together by circumstance, two souls colliding in quiet loneliness. But every glance, every accidental touch reminded me how fragile my resolve was. He would linger near the kitchen doorway, a soft smile that both invited and warned. His presence was like a magnet I couldn't resist, even though I knew every inch of me was being pulled into dangerous territory. We started sharing small routines that were innocent enough to hide from the world, yet intimate in a way that made my heart race. Morning coffee together, casual chats about movies or books, the brush of his hand against mine while reaching for a plate. It all became charged with meaning. I found myself anticipating his voice, the sound of him laughing, the subtle way he leaned just a little too close. The air between us thickened, each day a test of our restraint. I told myself it was the connection, the need for attention, nothing more. Yet deep down, I knew it was more. It was desire, raw and unspoken. One evening, while Adrian was still away, Caleb and I were sorting old photo albums in the living room. He laughed at a silly picture of his younger self, and I felt warmth spread through me, a warmth that should have been reserved for my husband. We lingered over the pages, fingers brushing, and suddenly the room seemed smaller, the air heavier. "Miranda," he said softly, his tone hesitant. "Do you ever feel like the world is bigger than what we're allowed to do?" I looked up, heart pounding. I knew exactly what he meant, and the silence that followed said more than words ever could. As the days passed, our conversations deepened. We talked about dreams, failures, moments of loneliness that we had hidden from others. He confessed fears about not fitting in, pressure from family expectations, the constant comparison to others. I opened up about missing the man I had once thought I knew, the quiet longing for a connection that had faded in my marriage. Every confession became a thread binding us closer. Every shared secret chipped away at the walls I had built, and with each passing night, the tension grew, a dangerous promise hanging in the shadows of the house. Then came the night when restraint slipped again. The lights were dim, the air heavy with unspoken thoughts. Caleb leaned closer, just a little too close, and our hands met, lingering in a way that sent shivers down my spine. I told myself to stop, to pull away, but the part of me that had been starved for attention for years answered in silence. Our eyes locked, words unnecessary, and the connection we both tried to ignore finally found its voice. A kiss, a brief, hesitant touch, sent everything spinning. My mind screamed that it was wrong, but my body betrayed me, responding to the hunger and longing I could no longer deny. Morning brought the weight of reality crashing back. Guilt pooled in the quiet corners of the house where warmth had been the night before. I tried to convince myself it was fleeting, a single lapse, but Caleb's presence was relentless. Small gestures, a note left on the counter, a casual touch in the hallway, kept the tension alive, constantly reminding me of the fire I had sparked and could no longer contain. And every time he looked at me, I saw my own desires mirrored in his eyes, a reflection of needs I had long ignored. The more I tried to distance myself, the closer he came. There were moments of fleeting innocence, a shared joke, a glance across the room, that hit a deeper, almost dangerous intensity. "Do you really feel alive with me?" he whispered one night, voice trembling with something between fear and longing. I had no answer ready, only the undeniable truth that I did, alive in a way I hadn't felt in years, and that terrified me as much as it thrilled me. It wasn't love, not yet. It was desire, a raw need for connection, for acknowledgement, for life beyond the quiet routine that had suffocated me. Each passing day, each stolen glance, built a tension that promised more than I was prepared to face. And deep down, I knew that every choice we made in these moments had the power to unravel everything I thought I knew. My marriage, my sense of self, and the fragile equilibrium of our household. Caleb was no longer just my stepson. He was a force I could neither resist nor ignore, and that scared me more than I wanted to admit. The tension between us had become almost unbearable. Every day felt like walking a tightrope, balancing normalcy with the magnetic pull that drew Caleb and me together. I found myself planning my movements around his, savoring fleeting moments, our hands brushing while reaching for a cup, a shared laugh over something trivial, or the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Each moment was a reminder that the line we were dancing on was dangerously thin, yet impossible to ignore. One evening, I caught myself staring at him longer than I should. He noticed, of course, and for the first time, he didn't look away. The air between us thickened, unspoken words lingering like smoke. "Miranda," he said softly, almost a whisper. "Why does it feel like everything I'm not supposed to want is exactly what I need?" His question echoed in my mind long after the words were spoken. I wanted to deny it, to retreat into the safety of routines and walls I had built, but my own desires mirrored his. I was helpless to stop it, even if every instinct screamed that we were treading dangerous waters. The nights became our confessions. We shared our fears, our regrets, and the loneliness that had been waiting quietly in the corners of our hearts. Caleb spoke of pressure, of not living up to expectations, of the constant feeling of being unseen. I spoke of longing, of missing the intimacy that had faded in my marriage, and of the quiet despair of feeling invisible in my own home. Our words became a bridge, fragile yet unbreakable in the way they allowed us to see each other. And every time our hands touched, every time our eyes lingered, the world outside seemed to vanish. Then came the night that changed everything. Adrian had called to say he would be delayed by work, leaving the house unusually quiet. Caleb found me on the couch, a book half forgotten in my lap, and without a word sat beside me. The silence was thick, charged with something we both refused to name. Our knees brushed. Our hands met, lingering longer than usual. The air was heavy with anticipation, and in that moment, restraint shattered. A kiss, soft, hesitant, yet filled with an intensity that made my heart race, marked the boundary we had crossed. Every part of me knew it was wrong, yet every fiber of my being responded. The fire that had smoldered between us finally ignited. Morning brought reality with the weight of guilt and uncertainty. I tried to convince myself it had been a fleeting lapse, a mistake born of longing and loneliness. But Caleb's presence made denial impossible. Small gestures, a hand lingering on the counter, a note slipped into my palm, a knowing glance, kept the tension alive, and with it, the awareness that our secret was growing heavier with each passing day. The house, once a sanctuary of routine and order, now felt like a stage for unspoken desires and hidden truths. The more I tried to resist, the closer he came. He became my mirror, reflecting back the desires I had tried to suppress, the longing for life and attention that had been starved for years. Each encounter, each fleeting moment of intimacy, pulled me deeper into a world I knew I shouldn't inhabit. And yet, the thrill of it, the feeling of being truly seen, truly wanted, was intoxicating, impossible to resist. One afternoon, while tidying the living room, Caleb lingered nearby, casually brushing against me as he passed. His voice, soft and tentative, broke the silence. "Do you ever think about what it would be like, if nothing else mattered?" I froze, heart pounding. The question hung in the air like a promise, daring me to answer. And in that moment I realized that I already had. I was already entangled, drawn into a world of desire, guilt, and emotional chaos from which there was no simple escape. We were living on the edge of something dangerous, each glance and touch a reminder of the consequences waiting to unfold. And yet, in the quiet moments between, I could feel life stirring within me in ways I had long forgotten. Desire, longing, fear, and excitement all mingled together, binding us in a tension that neither of us could deny. Caleb was no longer just Adrian's son. He was the center of a storm I could neither resist nor control, and I feared that surrendering to it, even for a moment, would change everything forever.